Hey woodcutters, TopSaw here. Today I'm going to go over a really cool project done with only hand tools from Harbor Freight. With these few tools, we're going to build the cedar fish right here so that you could barbecue salmon on a cedar plank. It all starts with Harbor Freight donating this incredible pallet of tools. What do you think about that?
Super cool.
We got all these tools from Harbor Freight to build toolkits for the students who are distance learning during this crazy pandemic time. So these boxes are all of the tools that Harbor Freight has sent us, and we put them together in these toolkits right here. Every toolkit has kind of the essential tools for a woodworking project. It starts with the Bauer 12-foot tape. It also includes a sheet of 150 sandpaper and these really nice coping saws that can cut really well. It has a 6-function screwdriver, one of their hammers, and then also a parallel wood clamp so you could clamp your material down to a tabletop and work on it. Additionally, it has a speed square. I'll put a link to a video on how to use that here. And then also safety goggles. Make sure absolutely you have safety glasses on at all times. Safety has to come first. Don't really use any of these tools until you kind of think out your process and you know you can be safe with them. Use the safety skills you've learned in this class. All right, where we're going to start on this project is there's a template in the description here, a link to a template of that salmon. Print that template out and then pull out your coping saw, your clamp, your safety glasses, and there's also spare blades for that coping saw. You want to open up this coping saw, and then it's shipped with the teeth on the inside. So you're going to loosen up this handle and take it all the way off. Take the blade out of the coping saw and reverse the teeth so that the teeth are on the outside. So you just unhook it on both sides, put the teeth on the outside. You can actually cut with this coping saw by pushing or by pulling. How you put the blade in there will determine whether it cuts on the pull stroke or the push stroke. I actually like it, the teeth cutting towards me, so that on the pull stroke it cuts. And then once you have those teeth in, facing towards you for the cutting on the pull stroke, you tighten that handle back up, and that little metal clip near the handle on the blade is what you hold so the blade doesn't turn. So that clip right there. You can also change the angle on that blade as well. Again, safety has to come first. Make sure you're wearing your safety glasses, not only for sawdust, but also so you don't get little metal pieces if the blade breaks in your eye. All right, once we have our safety glasses on and our coping saw blade ready to go, we're going to take our 2-page template and glue it down onto a piece of 1/2-inch cedar. So if you're at home, you could buy the cedar in the shop, or I'll leave a box of the cedar outside the classroom and you come by and pick it up whenever you want. If you email me, I could bring the cedar board over to your house as well and drop it off. So there it is. So this cedar is all lumber that I've brought in on the weekends doing tree work that we've cut up into usable logs and then milled into lumber. If you're interested in that process, I'll put a link here to the video on how the log is cut and milled and then surfaced. All right, so we got our cedar log, we got our template on top. We then use our wood clamp to clamp our board down. We won't be able to do all of our cutting with the wood clamp and the board clamp down. We're going to have to move it a few times. So here I am starting to cut the salmon out with my coping saw. It really should be a fun, enjoyable process, so you want to go slow and enjoy yourself. If your hands get tired or you're getting a little irritated, just take a break. You can also cut pieces out so you can get better access with the saw. Additionally, you can push that little metal clip back and forth to change the angle of the blade. So if the saw is kind of getting in the way of the board, you change that angle and that keeps the overall frame of the blade, the frame of the saw, outside of your wood part. So here I am cutting. I'll go to a little bit of time lapse to make it a little quicker. I know all of you want to get started on this project. And I'm just gently going through, not with sharp cuts, but long, consistent strokes, cutting on the pull stroke. When you've cut one side of the fish, reclamp it down, and you're going to have to do this a few times. And then clamp it as close to your table as you can, and then finish cutting it out right there. You can see right there, I'm cutting off that last piece, not breaking it off because I don't want to splinter the cedar wood. Long, gentle cuts. You know, learning how to use cutters by hand really teaches you a lot of skills. There's my fish. And then after I'm done cutting it out, I peel my template off. And if all the paper doesn't come off, then I can sand the rest of the paper off of my fish. This is 150 grit sandpaper. Usually start about 150 and go to 220. In this project, we're just going to sand just 150. I'm going to tear a full sheet of paper into a half sheet, then take that half sheet, fold it in half, and tear that into a quarter sheet. You could also take that piece of sandpaper and glue it onto a sanding block, which might help, and you could glue it on a different shaped blocks for different contours of the fish. You could sand all that paper off. You want to sand the edges. You kind of want to break the edges, which means just use the sandpaper on the edge of it so it's not sharp or you get any splinters at all. And there's our fish. Beautiful project done with a few hand tools. Let me go over just a few more steps on barbecuing. Before you do that, put all your tools away, clean up your work area, and make sure that you leave the place better than where you found it, especially if you're working at home. Your parents will really appreciate you cleaning up after yourself, including sweeping up the sawdust. All right, you got your fish. It's all done. Usually the way you barbecue on it, you soak it in water for a couple hours. Here I'm soaking it in the tub. You want it to get completely saturated. It's kind of cool properties of wood. The wood is actually like a sponge, and it'll soak a lot of water up. Once it's soaked in wood, put your fish on top of it and make sure everything's clean. I preheat the barbecue quite a bit to make sure the barbecue's clean. And then I also put foil down on the barbecue so I don't burn the fish up too much. That flavor of the fish will go into the wood. But just to make that piece of salmon even a little more tasty, I put a little brown sugar on it and put it on the barbecue. Fit it on there. You can see foil's down. Close that barbecue up and start cooking your fish on the barbecue on your salmon board. All right, there it is.